Next, we'll be hearing from Jon Kay. He serves as a professor of practice in Indiana's Department of Folklore and Ethnomusicology, teaching courses on public and applied folklore. He also serves as the curator of folk life and cultural heritage for the Mathers Museum of World Cultures. Folk Art and Aging, Life Story Objects and Their Makers is his first book, and he's produced more than 60 exhibitions and documentary videos. Here he is to share his insights on arts and aging. Please welcome Jon Kay.
Thank you. I just have to say, let's give Deb another round of applause. That was Can you all hear me okay? When they asked me to come up all the way over from Indiana to speak to you all, I thought I would think about not just talking about my book, but the stuff that I'm concentrating on now. So I'm going to be sharing some new material with you all. I'm a folklorist. I study tradition. And I spent the last 25 years of my life going out and identifying traditional arts. And I hate to say that it wasn't until relatively recently that I realized, a lot of the people I'm working with, they're old. A lot of them are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I realized that often we talk about it as being the exception. But in the folk and traditional arts, older artists are the norm. They're the ones that are doing important community work. And I want to talk about that. Think about what the traditional arts, or arts in general, are, and how they help older adults at different junctures in their life. So when we talk about art, we can be thinking about painting, we can be thinking about music, we can be thinking about lots of different things. But since I'm a folklorist, I think about art in everyday life. There's an art to everything we do. This is my friend Junie Theo Harris, lived into her 80s, and she operated a candy store, the Venus Chocolate Shop in Elwood, Indiana. And she would get up and she would make candy every single day because people would stop in, and she would get to visit people while she helped them pick out their favorite candy. And there's people like Archie Kraut, who learned to play when he was just a kid on a cigar box fiddle that his father made for him. He still plays those old tunes, but he goes around to senior centers. He's not part of a creative aging project. He is a standalone creative aging project, you might say. I'm also talking not just about those old-timey types of things that we think about in the United States, but I'm also talking about immigrant traditions, all types of traditions that are brought here, and the fact that those traditional forms help older adults stay relevant, connect with others, find a sense of mastery and enthusiasm in their lives. So the first thing, as you're thinking about developing creative aging programs that I wanted to share with you, is this idea of sociability. It's really easy when you read a lot of the creative aging literature to think that, this painting thing is like a magic thing. If you do it, people are happier and healthier and life is good. And there's some truth to that. Arts can do some really amazing things to people. But just the process of making is only one little part of it. Sociability is an important aspect of art making. You may make while you're alone. This is my friend Bob Taylor. He carves these wooden scenes of the memories of when he grew up. That's a boat that took him across the Ohio River at Coney Island. He carves these scenes, spends months doing it all alone. But then he goes to the county fair and the wood carving clubs and the weekly wood carving meetings. So when you're thinking about creative aging, it's not just the art, but it's the art in the world that you want to be thinking about. You see this very much among quilters. If you ever go to a quilting guild meeting, or what they like to call bitch and stitch sessions, they come together and everyone gets together, and there's often very little actual quilt making that goes on in those sessions, right? There's usually a whole lot of eating, and there's usually a whole lot of talking, and there's this sharing among people, each other. That sociability is really important. When we are talking about aging, there's what's called the 3 plagues of aging. Isolation and loneliness. As you get older, you become threatened of being shut off from other people. There's boredom. What are you going to do? I don't have anything to do. You play Candy Crush for hours. You watch TV for hours. You need to have something that engages you. And a feeling of helplessness. Well, I just can't do the things I like to do. I can't do the things I used to be able to do. The arts contribute to that. I want to share with you something that I just recently started thinking more and more about. I didn't grow up in a family where dancing was really big, but I started working with Kathy Rucker. Kathy Rucker is a clogger, and she has clogged since the 1980s and has a group that she calls Still Kicking. Now, she didn't really think about it as a creative aging class. What happened is she also coordinates the Circle City Cloggers, which is a group, but they loved clogging and they got a little bit older and they couldn't do the things that they'd done before. So let's play this, Michael.
Okay, well, I started the Still Kickins because a lot of the Circle City people were getting older and they wanted to, we had some younger people in the Circle City, and so they kind of felt like it was just getting too hard and they needed a different kind of class. And so I understood that. I was getting older, and so I created the Still Kickin' Cloggers. And they're all 55 years of age and older. And some people don't start till they're 60 or 70 or whatever. Most of them start dancing after they've retired. You don't have kids, you don't have to worry about going to work the next morning and you can't get out of bed because you vlogged all evening. So, and so many people are widowed, and so many people's family, they don't have family anymore, and so it's a place to go where you meet new friends, and you can always find somebody to go out and eat with, somebody that will come over and practice dancing. So basically that's how they got started. It's just the Circle City people got older and wanted to move out of that group, and some of them still dance. I mean, we still have Still Kickins that dance with Circle City. It just depends on what you want to do. But that's basically how it all started.
Stop there. Isn't that great? So it is our social connections that allow us to age creatively, that allow us to stay connected to other people. Sorry, I'm suffering from a little bit of vertigo, so if I grab a hold of this, that's just me doing that. And the sociability is really an important aspect of this. There was a recent study of over 300,000 people over a 7-year period, and they figured out that people who were socially engaged, people who were socially connected to other folks, were much more likely to live. I think it was like almost 3 times more likely to live than people with poor social connections. In fact, it surpassed obesity, smoking cigarettes, heavy tobacco use, and alcohol as predictors of mortality for older adults. So sociability, you need to find a way of staying connected with people, and creative practice like this type of clogging is one way that people have done this. Pushing wrong, sorry.
Well, I started the Still Kick.
So sociability is big. Another aspect of this is generativity. You probably knew what sociability was, or being social, but generativity. This idea is generating, the idea of giving something to the next generation. And as a folklorist, we call that tradition. And there's a real powerful need, especially once you get into that 60-plus age, that you feel like you have all this knowledge and all this skill that you want to share with other people. And if people are lucky, they find that person, that apprentice, they find that neighbor, they find that child that they can share their talents with. This is my friend Alan Richards. He grew up building split rail fences, learned to build split rail fences from his uncle. And this is his grandson, Porter, here. I want to show you just a little video clip.
I believe it's one more lick and it'll do it. Hey, look at that. All right. Hard? Nope. Probably are.
He worked all day long building a split rail fence at this festival that I was producing. Now, often in the arts, we think about arts for K-12 education, the idea of doing things for the benefit of the children. But I can honestly say, I think Alan got as much enjoyment out of seeing that split rail put out by his 11-year-old grandson than Porter actually got out of it. You know, and so a lot of the programming we do is not just at older adults, but actually is eliciting older adults to be those masters, those tradition bearers, and to share their talents. And I think that that's a valuable point for us to think about. So think about generativity. Think about the ways in which you can take those special and unique talents that you have and share them with the next generation. So what? We can talk about people be happier, maybe it points towards healthier or whatever. The arts are an important tool for resilience. What is resilience? Anybody have a definition for resilience? Grit? That's one type of resilience. The idea that you're going to, you can muscle through, like I am with my vertigo right now. You can muscle through these things. But actually, resilience is more like a constellation of things. It's those support structures that you have that allow you to overcome when you experience some type of rupture or some type of break in your normal life. Everyone has certain resilience. It could be a bank account is a form of resilience, or insurance is a form of resilience, or supports resilience. Family supports resilience. Having good genetics is a type of support for your resilience. But the arts are another aspect that allow us to have resilience in our later life. When Ruth Newhouser used to garden all around her house, but as she got older, she wasn't able to go into the flower beds and cut the flowers and tend the garden like she always liked, and she couldn't arrange her flowers then. So she revived an old tradition from when she was a little girl. She started making these tatted lace doily flowers. And she would arrange those flowers and frame them. And she'd make up a whole stack of them, and then she would take them to the Mennonite relief sale, and they would sell them to raise money for the Mennonite missions that she wanted to support. She had to be adaptable. But doing that art form, that reserve, she was able to not just give up and not work in a yard, but actually continue. My friend Nancy Morgan, she was a quilter down in North Florida, and she quilted at a frame every Wednesday with her friends. And an interesting thing happened. When she got bursitis in her shoulders and she could no longer work over the quilting frame, she said, "Well, I'm going to have to quit quilting, John." And I said, No, you can come down and sit with people. No, it wouldn't be right for me just to be there sitting. I can't do that. And so what she ended up doing is I talked her into reviving this tradition of doing briar stitching. We saw some briar stitching there on the rugs, so she could do, on her quilts rather, so she could do it in her lap, and it didn't hurt her shoulders as much as being over the quilting frame. Resilience, having that ability to bounce back. I want to share just another little video clip that points towards resilience.
When I retired, she's the one brought me out here just to start dancing. And I love the ladies because, you know, as you retire, you want to get involved in something. And this is kind of a community. I feel like they're my sisters for me.
My name is Joycelyn Davis, and I was recently diagnosed with cancer. My doctor told me to find something that I could do to get up out of that bed and not feel sorry for myself. So the thing I thought was dance.
I'm new. I love it. It's just a really fresh time. I thought older people would get slower. These ladies are wonderful. Every single one of them.
But you can see, dance is doing more than just the arts or being creative. It actually is providing that social network, the sociability, this idea of being able to connect with other people. So when those bad things happen, you can overcome. I'll tell you a little more harsher story, or harsh is the wrong word, amazing story. This is my friend Mary Alice Collins. She was a pie baker at the Indiana State Fair. We produced a documentary video about her about 6 or 7 years ago. The following year, she was traveling in South America. She got an infection, it turned sepsis. She ended up losing all the fingers on both hands and both legs below the knees. Later on in that same year, she was diagnosed with cancer. But come August, she baked 30 pies for the Indiana State Fair. 5 years later, she was still entering 30 pies at the Indiana State Fair. Why? Why would somebody do that? If anybody had a reason just to give up and to stop, you would think it would be someone like Mary Alice. Resilience. Having a creative practice that you can go back to, something that can say, everything else is falling apart, but I can hold on to this and I can continue to be the same person that I am. To say that to the world, but more importantly, to say that to yourself. My friend Roy Spite was a drum maker in Indianapolis, and as he was getting to the last days with a type of memory loss that he would have, he'd still go out and make drums, even when most people would have probably just been laying in bed. And I could just tell you countless stories of these types of objects and things, these types of activities. I did a program called Memory Shelves at a local senior center that really tried to play on these notions of generativity with older adults. And what I did was I brought college students in to interview older adults about the shelves outside the rooms and to tell important life stories with them. Some of the other programs I've been doing is bringing older adults into the museum, not to do programs for those older adults, but to provide a venue for those older adults to actually be the artists and to share their talents with other people. It's my friend James Young doing paper folding with my students in one of my classes here. Giving that opportunity for older adults to actually experience generativity and sociability are important aspects of also helping them come to terms with who they are and to forge resilience in their lives. I can tell you about all types of other programs, but I'm almost out of time. Currently what we're doing is we're going into communities and we're trying to identify the traditional arts that are there and find venues where older adults can share their talents and also teach other older adults that maybe don't have those skills that they would like to, that they can think of that they want to work. My friend Kara Barnard is working with the Silver Strings group in Salem, Indiana, a community that's well known for their string instrument playing, and she's teaching them how to play dulcimer. As I said, string instruments, playing music is central to that place in southern Indiana. And as I said, I could talk for a long time about the programs that I do, but I wanted to bring out those kind of 3 important points. Yes, the arts are important. Arts are great for creativity, and it does amazing things in our lives. But it's even more important when you use those arts to connect people and to maintain those connections with other people. If you can have an intergenerational type of program where you're an artist, an elder, gets that opportunity to share their skills with the next generation, it's even more powerful. And finally, folklore, art, it's not the luxury that sometimes we think of it. It's not the ephemera of our lives. It's not the added thing that we do when we have surplus. It is our creative core. It is what makes us human. And we have to start nurturing that in younger people so that when they get to be in a point where life feels like it's pulling them apart, they can hold on to it. And that's the point I wanted to make to you today. Thank you all very much.